Hi everyone, this is part one of a two-part video on plagiarism, what it is and how to avoid it. So this first part we're going to talk about what plagiarism is, and then in the second part we're going to talk about how to give proper citation. So what plagiarism is, I have the dictionary.com definition here, but if I were to just kind of explain it to you, anytime you take thoughts or ideas of someone else, it is plagiarism. Now this might be just copying and pasting, this could be taking statistics or a conclusion that someone came up with in their own research study and using it as your own. It could be if you have a friend who's taken a class before and you're taking that person's paper and submitting it. It could be that you took their work and you changed 2 or 3 words. There are a number of different ways that a person can plagiarize, and so this is going to kind of talk to you a little bit about some of that. And I do note here that also if you pay for a paper that was already written, or if you had it written for you through a paid service, it is still considered plagiarism because it is not your own work. So any time that you insert the work of anyone else into your assignment, you have to give it credit. You have to cite it. So we talk about parenthetical references throughout this video. The parentheses are the things that appear above the 9 and 0 keys, and we're going to go through in the second video on how to make a parenthetical reference. But you have to use them anytime that you have a statistic, if you have any information that's not general or common knowledge, if you have someone else's work and you only change a few words. Any of these situations, if you copy and paste something directly, you will also be using parenthetical references. So you need to make sure that you do this throughout your work anytime the words are not your own and the thoughts or ideas are not your own. So we're going to talk a little bit about common knowledge next. Common knowledge is anything that's known by just about anybody. So if you're not sure if it's common knowledge or not, ask a group of your friends. Some people say that if you have something you want to know if it's common knowledge, you should go and you should ask 50 people. And if you have at least 40 people who say, yes, I know this, then it's common knowledge. Other things say you only need 30. With this, you can kind of use your judgment on what is common knowledge and what is not. So an example of common knowledge, July 4th, we celebrate the day we declared our independence from England. It doesn't need to be cited because it is common knowledge. It's something that most educated people would know. If you went and asked a group of your friends, hopefully they would all know this. If not, at least the majority of them would know this. So something that's not common knowledge. And I have an actual example here. The first draft of the Declaration of Independence was completed on the 28th of June. So if it hadn't been for a bunch of people asking for some things to be changed, we would be celebrating the 28th of June instead of the 4th of July. So because it's not common knowledge, I actually have right here a parenthetical reference to show where this information came from. So this is not common knowledge because most people would not know this. I mean, how many of you knew this? How many of you actually knew that 28th of June is when the Declaration of Independence was completed and would have been signed if it hadn't been for a few people making changes? So I did notice I did cite it. I gave that parenthetical reference. It's not a direct quote, so it is not in quotation marks. But if I left out that citation, it'd be plagiarism. So if something is not common knowledge, you have to cite it. It includes statistics. And in the next video, as we go through, we're going to talk about how to give proper credit. So I have for you some examples of plagiarism. And please feel free to use the pause button on this video to go through and actually read through the examples and read through all of this slowly at your own pace. I'm going to kind of just talk through it, but please, again, use that pause button if needed. So if a student were to submit this, the website that this came from, this is what you would find on that website. Now, if you notice, it is not exactly word for word, but it is still pretty much the same. There are a couple words that are changed. For example, East and West, the E in East is not capitalized and the W in West is not capitalized in the student's paper. So you can see how it's very similar. It's plagiarism because a few words were changed, but it's not cited. Because it is not word for word, it does not need to be in quotation marks. However, you still need the parenthetical reference to show that this came from somewhere else. And when we go through later on in the next video, when I show you how to properly cite things, I'll give you an example of paraphrasing and show you how to cite that. So the next one we have, this is the student's paper. This is what the student submitted. And again, remember, you can pause it if you want to take a better look. So this is what's on the website. As you can see, it is a list of everything that was on the other page. So the student took out the bullets and put in commas and made it into a list. So it's plagiarism because the student copied and pasted the text. There are no quotation marks to show it's a direct quote, and there's nothing showing what source it came from. So for example 3, now if you were to take these words and put them through a plagiarism checker, you would not get any hits. But if you notice, there's a picture on this page. So chances are the student who submitted this picture, who was in her 20s, did not go back to 1963 or 1962, I believe it was, to take this picture of John F. Kennedy. It did not go back to the 1960s to get this picture. So it's clearly not the student's own work. It's plagiarism because the student didn't cite it. Now, this could also, because it is an image, fall under copyright infringement, and that is a federal crime. But the important takeaway from this is anytime you use an image, a graph, or anything like that, you have to provide proper citation from it, otherwise it is plagiarism. And you can use images and graphs in your paper, you just have to give it credit. So this is example 4, and remember, you're more than welcome to pause it so you can take a good look. So there's a website where students can purchase pre-written papers, and it had this as their little sample of this depression paper. It matches exactly what the person had. So it's plagiarism because there's a strong possibility that the student purchased the paper from this website. At the very least, the student copied and pasted this information and didn't give any proper citation. Now, there are hundreds of websites where students can purchase papers. However, I will forewarn you, instructors can tell if a paper has been purchased. And it violates plagiarism, and it also violates just ethics and academic honesty. So please be aware of that. Instructors know when something has been purchased or taken from a website. So in our next video, we're going to go through what you can do to make sure that you don't plagiarize. So I hope that you found these examples helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know. And remember, you can always go through and pause this video to read through it in more detail. Thank you.